Hey guys, it's your boy HarryWilmington here. This is a very impromptu show, but there was some news that broke today that I wanted to talk to you guys about in the context of your own dating journey, and especially in your journey of hooking up with women. On this show, obviously, I try to give you guys a lot of advice on how you can become a more comfortable dater, be a guy that's less anxious, and is able to be the kind of guy that can be around women in a variety of settings, not get nervous, and ideally have the pick that you want to get, right? And so in developing these skills, you may very well get so good that you can literally have any woman you want, and you may decide to take advantage of that. And while I give you guys advice on this show that pertains to being able to get women, I do want to do a bit of a cautionary about just like being able to get a whole lot of women is great, but does that mean you always should take advantage of that? And what could be potential consequences? As a 41-year-old guy, how I feel about hooking up with a variety of women now versus when I was in my 20s, not that it's necessarily altered, but I can better see the realities of what can come with that. And that if you're not careful, you could face some dire consequences. And I wanted to do this in the context of this news that broke today. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what happened. And basically, actor Russell Brand is currently being accused of some very, very serious allegations, most of which I cannot verbally say on YouTube or else I can get demonetized. So I'll read through this story and then we'll go into the area that I want to talk about as it pertains to promiscuity. All right. So it says Russell Brand accused of a variety of bad hookup things with women against their will. In new report, comedian absolutely refutes allegations. So it says he's been accused of these bad things in a new report by the Sunday Times of London. The joint investigation with the Times of London and Channel 4's documentary team dispatches published on Saturday, blah, blah, blah. It says 5 women, 4 of whom asked to remain anonymous, agreed to share their stories of serious allegations in the program. Now, I will say this, because I'm not going to get too much to my thoughts and opinions on whether or not he did this or not, all right? Because I don't think the purpose of what I want to talk about, that's important. I will say this. It's interesting that they're saying there are anonymous sources that are coming out of the woodwork to say these things. And the goal of these news medias is to have trial by public prosecution versus taking it to court. And I find that bothersome because whether he did these things or not, he still deserves a day in court. And the fact that the court of public opinion is what people go to now for this stuff absolutely infuriates me, because let's say he did do these things. Well, we still need to have actual evidence that shows that. And let's say he didn't, he now gets his reputation ruined for seemingly no reason because of some allegations that people just put out there and were automatically believed about. But that's a story for another day. Anyway, so the point is this. So the 5 women are coming out, 4 of whom are remaining anonymous. And they're saying that these accusations happened between 2006 and 2013. And then it says that the newspaper reported that one alleged victim said Brand assaulted her when she was 16 during a 3-month emotionally and hookup abusive relationship that included one incident where he did bad things to her throat with his member. In another incident, he removed protection while they were hooking up without her knowledge. And the woman also said Brand nicknamed her the Child, asked her to read passages from Vladimir Nabokov novel, and once kissed her mother on the mouth. So there's other alleged victims said he did something else, blah, 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 blah. Other allegations include a 24-year-old runner that said he did something. He flashed her one time. And another story that I read about this, she said that he flashed her and then they went on to have like a 3 or 4 month relationship. Again, I'm not going to put my personal opinion out about these particular allegations. I just find this stuff interesting that, again, this woman had a relationship with him, and then she's going to say later on, oh, but he flashed me, and oh, this and that, and I was feeling some kind of way. We'll get into that in a minute. Anyway, personal assistant said that she witnessed Brand showing intimate pictures of women, blah, blah, blah. So you can see he's facing some very, very serious stuff. Now, him himself came out a couple of days ago, came out last night before these allegations dropped, and he was saying in advance, I've gotten notice that these allegations are coming out against me. He said these allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream media, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies. And as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent, and I'm being transparent about it now. Now, this is the part that I really want to talk to you guys about because, for those of you guys that either haven't had a lot of dating experience with women or you're just starting to get the understanding of what it takes to attract women, but you still haven't really had like full-on success, it can be really easy to look at that and say, man, I wish I had the skill set to be able to get all these women and sleep with all these women. It would be absolutely great. And admittedly, hey, it's a great ego boost to know that a woman out there willingly wants to see you naked and willingly wants to do stuff to you in the bedroom setting. So I totally get that. Because if you haven't been there before, it's almost like if you haven't had dessert before, every dessert looks absolutely great. And so when you finally get a shot at that, when you finally get good with women, when you finally start to understand how they work, and you're starting to attract a lot more of them and keep them around longer, then you'll find that the positive benefit of that is you will have a variety of women that will want to sleep with you. And so at that point, you have the option to choose what you want to do. Now, that could mean you pick one girl that you feel is the right girl and you just do stuff with her and that's a wrap. You might have a couple of partners here and there, or you might say, you know what? I got the skill set. I'm running through town. I'm going to go and do as many women as I possibly can. And I'm not going to make a judgment call for you about whether or not that is the right choice for you. But I always want you guys to know potentially things that could happen to you that you may be unaware of. And one of the things that can happen when you're great with women and you start to sleep with a lot of women is that there can be some major consequences out there as it pertains to later on in your life. And as you can see with Mr. Russell here, he said, during my movie time days, I was a promiscuous guy. I was banging everything moving, right? Well, when you get into that mind frame and that mode, oftentimes what can happen is you will sleep with anybody, including women that are nice, kind, good girls, or women that are bad girls, some women that are very sane and come from good families, but also women that have an agenda and are really not the best people to be sleeping with. And they can be users and abusers, and they're willing to do whatever they can to be able to either get you. And if they can't get you, then they're going to get you. And I mean, get you in the sense of there's going to be some kind of retaliation against you that they're going to put out there. Now, I'm not going to say for purposes of this story that that's what's happening, because I'm really that guy that's like, I need to see all the evidence come out before there's any kind of decision on my part made about whether he did this thing or not. But what I am saying is that you would be surprised at how easily women can hold on to personal grudges against you, to where even if you didn't do anything, they could still have an agenda to come against you later. And this is something that on a very lower level, I experienced like many, many years ago. I had dated this girl for a while, and after a time, I didn't feel like it was really going that well for me. And we had kind of been having a bit of a tiff or going or whatever. And so there was a time when she reached out to me and just said, hey, I don't think this is working out. We should break up. And at that point, I was already starting to get in that mind space of, I have abundance. If this doesn't work out, it sucks, but I can find somebody else. So I just texted her back and said, okay. And then that was it. And then, but what happened was, it wasn't it. So I said, that's okay. Okay, I'm okay. And then that was it. And then like a week later, she hit me up again, and she was like, hey, we should meet up and talk. And, I was feeling some kind of way, and I wanted you to talk about something with me. And I thought the easiest way to do that was to do a breakup and blah, 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 blah. Well, at that point, I was like, well, I told you when we started dating, I don't want to have that kind of relationship. Like, if you have a problem, I've always said I'm open to you coming to me to talk about stuff. I'm a pretty even keel guy. I don't always assume I'm right. You can come to me and say, hey, like, these are my grievances. I will sit down and say, okay, I can see what you're talking about. It is what it is. But at that point, I was already like, but you already went this route, and so I'm out. So she hits me up like a couple of days later, and she really wants to come over and hook up with me. And honestly, at that point, I was so frustrated. I just said, just come over. So she came over, we did some stuff, and then she left. And then she wanted to hook up again. And at that point, I was like, in my head, I was mature enough to be like, if I keep hooking up with her, then she's going to want to get back together. That's not the route I want to go. So I'm going to say, I don't want to do this hookup. And she kept pressing me and pressing me and pressing me to try to hook up with her. And I kept saying, no, 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 we should break up. We're not a couple anymore. I'm already trying to move on, yada, yada, yada. And it's at that point that she said, well, I'm pregnant. Now, the only problem with her saying she was pregnant is that I had recently gotten a vasectomy, like literally like maybe 2 weeks prior to us having our final hookup, I had gotten a vasectomy. And with a vasectomy, they tell you, okay, once you get the vasectomy, you have to, shall I say, clean the pipe a few times before you can just, do that stuff without having to wear anything to protect yourself, right? So I was making sure that my pipes were clean because there was another girl that I was trying to get to start another connection with. And I wanted to be able to, if I wanted to have the option to be able to do that, stands anything on, because I got a vasectomy. So when we hooked up, I had already had the vasectomy, but she was just like, oh no, you got me pregnant and blah, blah, blah. And she could understand why I wasn't panicking about it. So I was just like, well, I mean, look, go to the doctor and find that out. If you are actually pregnant, then let me know, whatever. But the point is this, is that she was mad at me because I wouldn't do what she wanted me to do. And so she thought she could trap me by trying to put this whole pregnancy thing on. Spoiler, she wasn't pregnant. So the point is this, is that I say this, but the point is that, like, that's an example of a woman was upset with me. And so she wanted to put something out there that was going to potentially freak me out or make me anxious or ruin my reputation or whatever, right? And that's the lesson that I want guys to understand, is that as guys, we go to women and we think they all have the best intentions. They're pretty, they smell great, they're attractive, they're vibrant. We get all horny for them. And so we don't want to think that women out there are going to hold any kind of grudges against us or do any bad things. And then especially in this day and age where, first date hookups or one night stands are like a big deal and everybody's doing them. So we're thinking, man, if I have a one night stand with this girl and I don't want to hook up with her after that, she's going to totally understand. This is the culture that we're in. If she doesn't hook up with me, she can get 5 or 10 other guys. And yet men don't seem to understand that ultimately, even though that is the thing that is being paraded around, most women don't want 5 to 10 guys or 20 guys or 30 guys. Like, I know there are shows on YouTube you can watch where you have these girls say, I got 40, 50 bodies. But across the board, women aren't actually wanting that. Most of those women are like, I want a relationship, but I think I got to sleep with the guy to get into one. So I'm going to just do that. And then they end up racking up their body count. But to the point is that because most women are generally, this is a generalization, are trying to sleep with you in hopes of using that as a means to convince you to keep them around longer, to potentially give them more hookups or give them a relationship or give them safety and security and trust or give them whatever, that when you don't do that, there are women out there that will do anything they can to take down your name. I'm talking, they will call up your family members. They will stalk you on Facebook and try to find ways to get into your inner circle to tell them all the bad things you're doing to them. And you don't think these women exist because you're thinking, I'm relatively new. I haven't had a lot of women. And so any women that I get is going to be absolutely nice and great. And you know what? Hey, I think the world of women, when I'm in relationships, I treat the person that I'm with the best that I possibly can. I believe that they have much that they can bring to the table. But I also believe that they can be vindictive at times. And the thing is this, is that all women across the board are so good at giving the front of being pretty and being kind and being loving that you're not going to be able to see the side of her that can happen when she gets angry. And what will typically happen is this. You'll be in a relationship, for example, for like, say, you'll date for 3 months. She'll come to you and say, hey, what are we? You'll get into a relationship and things are all hunky-dory. And then there's that first argument. And that first argument is going to tell you everything you need to know about how she actually fights. Because some women, you'll say to them, hey, you know what, babe? I want to talk to you about this thing. This thing was really bugging me, and I want to know how we can come to resolution. And saying women that are understanding that they're not always going to be perfect will be like, okay, I understand. I see how that thing could have hurt your feelings, or I didn't mean that. I meant it like this, but I see how it affected you. So let's talk about that and come to some kind of agreement. Those are the women you keep. All right. Now, on the other hand, you'll get women that are like, you'll say to them, hey, babe, so just, that thing you did the other day, like, I just want to say it really kind of like hit me the wrong way. And I know it wasn't intentional, but it hurt my feelings. And some women will come back like, oh, that's not a thing. How could you say that? Or they'll turn it around. Why are you bringing this to me? I was just trying to do, oh my God. And then it makes it about her, right? At that point, you know you have a woman that is going to play the victim, which I'm going to do a show more about on Tuesday, but they play the victim, or they say that's not a thing, or you're being too sensitive as a guy, even though I told you to tell me your emotions, but now you're too sensitive, whatever, and they'll fight you. And next thing you know, you realize, oh crap, I'm with a woman that is going to make me out to be the bad guy if this thing goes haywire. And I've dated those women where it's like things are going great initially, and then things go haywire. And then if I initiate a breakup, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to tell all your friends and family, you did this to me and blah, 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 or whatever. And again, you got to know that women out there are like that. But this goes back to the promiscuity thing, is that if you're out there right now just sleeping with every single thing you can, because you're having a grand old time, you're thinking this is so great, all you're really doing is actually thinking about you and your own pleasure, and you're not looking into, but how are these women that I'm hooking up with legitimately taking it when I just hook up with them and leave? You know, Russell Brand, he was a very popular guy. He could probably have nights where he was like, okay, I'm done mess with you. Now get that freak out of here. I got another one coming. How did that girl feel that he kicked out? Is that a girl that's going to be thinking, you know what? I'm going to sit on this. I'm going to sit on these feelings, but at some point down the line, I'm going to put out some accusations against him. I'm going to say, here are my feelings. Well, he flashed me, but then I got in a relationship with them, but then the relationship didn't last. So now that flashing that he did that I initially took as flirtatious and humorous and actually made me want to hook up with them, now I got to say that's harassment because it didn't work out. And I'm not saying that's the case here, but I'm saying those kind of things can very easily happen. So if you're trying to rack up bodies of like 30 bodies, 50 bodies, 100 bodies, you now have 100 potential women out there that at any given time, if they feel some kind of way about you, or they're thinking about you one day and be like, oh, I hate that he really broke up with me, or I hate that this thing happened, boom. You don't know if the girl that you hurt is going to be the one that's going to come back and say, well, he did this thing to me, or he hurt my feelings this way, or he tried to do this, or he cheated on me, or he did X, Y, and Z. And for all you know, obviously for you know if it's going to be false or not, but assuming it's false, just because you know it's false doesn't mean that everybody around you, everybody in your family, everybody in her circle, everybody in the public at large isn't going to believe her story first. And so I give you guys dating tips on here because I want you to ultimately be able to find that person that's going to be able to be in your life and really support you and be the right partner. And I want you to have the skill set so that when you find that person, you know how to treat them so that way, and more importantly, you know how to vet them to know that they're the kind of person that for the most part, you have a pretty good eye on is going to be able to actually like treat you well, and that if things go bad, is not going to like try to air out grievances to the world to make you look bad. That's why I give you these skills, right? If you happen to use these skills to be able to have a couple of hookups here and there, I still say that's totally fine, but you really need to do a better job of vetting. Because I'm going to tell you, if you're not vetting properly and you're just slinging yourself out there to everybody that comes along, there's inevitably going to be a woman you come across that is going to do you absolutely dirty should you decide to break up with her. And that's what Russell's experiencing now. Now, again, I don't know. He might have done some of this stuff. He might have very well done the stuff that was talked about in these things, or they could be women that are just mad, or because he's so much in the media now in terms of talking about what the left is doing wrong, what the right is doing wrong, and what the media is doing wrong. This could be a hit piece from the media to shut him up. Like, I don't know none of this stuff, but I'm just using this as a basis to tell you guys that if you're thinking that you want to use these dating skills that you're learning to go out there and sleep with a bevy of women, there are negative consequences that can come with that. If you're prepared to deal with all those negative consequences, hey, go and have a good time. But if you're thinking that there's a chance that there's a woman you've come across that you've hooked up with, that you're already thinking, oh man, like I hooked up with her and I kicked her out, or I hooked up with her and then I found out something about her, so I made her leave with this and that, and you're nervous about that, then going forward, really start doing a better job of doing due diligence, because I don't want you to end up in a scenario like him. I'm assuming that you haven't done anything, but you're dealing with women out there who can get their feelings hurt easily, or they want to like key up your car because there's a misunderstanding of some kind because you hooked up with them and then they thought maybe you weren't calling them back fast enough. Like, those women exist. Those women legitimately exist that are down to harm you because they're all about them. They're all about their victim mentality, and they feel as though anything that they do because they felt hurt by you when you slept with them and left is going to be justified. And you know what? These days, the public of court opinion is going to agree with them. They're going to say, well, yeah, she slashed his car, or yeah, well, she, outed something about their relationship to his entire family, but he slept with her and left. And so therefore she's justified. the feelings train is not on your side, fellas, and that's the honest truth. So use these skills to be able to refine how you communicate with women and, know the seductive process and know the process and in and outs of dating, but use it wisely. Make sure you're using these skills to vet women that are going to be more likely to have a more friendly demeanor should you decide to hook up with them and leave. And ideally, also, you're the kind of guy that's legitimately out there hooking up with women that you want to actually get with, not just trying to rack up your numbers. Again, I don't make judgments for that. I just know that by doing that, there can be consequences later. And most of us aren't celebrities. Most of us don't have the means to hire lawyers, these high-powered lawyers to go in and defend us against women that are putting false accusations against us or trying to ruin our reputation, all right? So be careful when you're out there and make sure you're mindful when you're hooking up with women. Make sure, even if you are like the horniest guy, you haven't hooked up in 2 or 3 years with somebody, you come across a girl that's like, hey, I'm down to do it tonight. I'm telling you, it is not worth it. If you're in your 20s and 30s, it is not worth getting this one-time piece of peace leave to then have your reputation ruined at the point where you've established yourself, you got a business going, you got a wife and kids now, and you got a girl coming back from 15 years ago who you kind of recognized early back then didn't have her head on straight, but you were like, but it's a good hookup and I'm going to try it out, only to have her come back years later and ruin your reputation. Like, it's just absolutely not worth it. So I just wanted to get on here and talk about that because that story was always reading today, and I had some opinions to talk about it. So hopefully, guys, this helps you guys out. Thanks for watching. The normal show that I do, by the way, is on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock. So come back then. I have a great show that's being planned for this coming Tuesday, and I definitely want you to be a part of it. So thanks for watching. I'm HarryWilmington, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm out. Peace.
Call this beat Will Smith, cause it slaps hard. Hear it